Remember the Nightingale, Chapter 4. The Nightingale. Harvesting coffee cherries takes weeks. Gayton works alongside his stepfather, gathering only the ripest cherries, leaving the green ones to further develop. Coffee and bananas. These are two of the most important of the crops they grow. Plucking a red cherry from the vine, Gayton eyes it and rolls the plump oval fruit tenderly between his fingers. Maybe because of the vibrant red, Gayton thinks of Everest whenever he harvests coffee. Can I help? She was barely walking the first time she asked if she could help him gather the coffee cherries. Stricken, Gayton frowned, shooing her away. No, it's not a job for you. She tipped her head to the side. Without hair, her eyes always seem unusually wide. She asked curiously, Why not? Gayton made a cutting motion through the air with his hand. You're a Tootsie, Everest, and you're not a Tootsie? Unable to strike the look of horror from his face completely, Gayton growled, No, I'm not. I'm Hutu. She shrugged, reached for a vine, and plucked a few red cherries. Dropping them into his basket, she declared boldly, Well, then, I'm a Hutu too. From then on, he let her help him. She teaches him to not care, to not see the differences, said Alkalisa, watching her young son teach the young girl how to harvest coffee. Wonder if that will always be a good thing, Muhira replied, half in awe and half in fear. Both women knew Hutu and Tutsi had never, were not, and would never be the same. That Alkalisa was innocent to the differences was both wondrous and frightening and temporary. Gayton indulged her naivety until the Revolution. Soon thereafter, she learned. She became his shadow, refused to leave his side, and walked with him to the market to sell his bananas and coffee. A tall, thinner man walked nearby. He frequently purchased large quantities of bananas from Gayton's family, and Eva started to call out to get his attention. Gayton shook his head, stopping her, his eyes moving away from the familiar man. But Gayton, he'll buy all of these bananas. You'll make a lot, and I'm not selling to Tootsies. That doesn't make sense, Gayton. You're going to deprive your family of the money just because you're a different tribe? I'm Tootsie and you talk to me. She put her fingers against his arm. Hutu, Tootsie. Does it really matter? Really, we're all the same. Jerking his arm from beneath her touch, he viciously spat. I am not Tootsie. I will never be Tootsie. He was there. I saw him murder my friends. Hutu will never be Tootsie. Don't ever say that again. Gayton, I go home. But leave me alone. Go home, Tootsie. Regret stabbed holes in his conscience when her shoulders slumped and a new sadness crept into her eyes. A heavy and unfamiliar maturity crowded her as she bent her head slowly. I see, she replied quietly. I see. I won't bother you again. The noise from the market faded, the brightness of the morning sun dimmed, and the day grew longer when she walked away. He wanted to run to her, to be the person she thought he was, but the world was not what she believed it to be. She hadn't been there when his father and his brother were brutally murdered. She hadn't seen the look of panic in his brother's eyes as he gurgled on his own blood. Believing there weren't any differences between the tribes would only hurt her. It was better she understood the way things really were. Gayton never apologized, but Everest acted as though he had. She never mentioned what happened at the market. She never asked him why he had called her Tootsie, as though it were a disease, as though the radio ads calling Tootsie's cockroaches were true. When he tried to explain, she shook her head, offered a smile that was not really an Everest smile, and said, Am I still your friend, even if I am a Tootsie? Everest. Undisguised terror shone in her dark eyes. Her bottom lip disappeared between her teeth, a sure sign she was nervous. The guilt punched him in the gut again. But an image of his brother quickly followed. The guilt blossomed, but for a different reason. As confused as he felt, there was one thing he never questioned. Everest, you will always be my heart. Then we don't have to speak of it any more. And that was that. When she accompanied him to the market, she didn't mention if she saw someone who used to shop his wares. When he visited her to find one of the Tutsi who lived in his nightmares, chatting easily with her, helping her with her cattle, he made small talk with the man. He worked peacefully alongside him in Everest's field. When his friend's murderer approached them as they walked toward the river, though, it was Everest who angrily called him such, and told him her family would never trade with his again. Gayton remained calm and silent. But when a Hutu saw the two of them walking together and shouted, "He's with that cockroach, look at that!" Gayton threw the first punch. The offending Hutu sported two black eyes for a week. And so they both went on, pretending nothing was changing, protecting each other, and ignoring the cracks. Good day. Evers's voice rings out, drawing Gayton's eyes from the vines to the edge of the field. The lazy whitened dog, who stole sleep in a different field each night, lags alongside her. In a faded tobacco-colored dress with the morning sun shining on her, Everest's skin glows. Her smile lights up her entire face. Her wide eyes sparkle. Gayton arches a thin brow. Hint of mischief dances around her. The dog steps in front of her, nearly tripping her. She laughs, sidestepping around the dog. I have an idea. Chuckling, Gayton plucks another cherry from the vine. Is it like the last idea you had? Embarrassment stains her cheekbones, but true to form, she refuses to bow to it. Instead, she rolls her eyes. How was I to know I was so good at hitting a ball with a stick? I wonder how many things get broken in the West with them always hitting balls with sticks. Gayton's smile flashes before he can stop it. I don't think their balls hit grazing cows. I have to admit it was fun. Gayton looks back at the vine, stepping a bit further down the row. Anyway, Evers persists in a sing-song voice. No balls are involved in this idea. Oh, but sticks are, he teases, arching his brows. Evers laughs. Well, yes, kinda. I heard Nyrir say they are building huts for the village today in the forest. I thought we might go help them. Help the Twa women build the huts. Eva shrugs. Sure, it's fun, and they usually have the storytelling afterwards. Gaydon bobs his head from shoulder to shoulder. It will take hours. The coffee needs harvesting. Would it hold one day? Gaydon says nothing. He continues to pluck coffee cherries, dropping them into the bucket, until Everest reaches out spontaneously and grips his arm. Surprise drapes over Gayton's face, his thin brows arching high. His eyes drop into her hand on his arm. She tips her head, smiling up at him, her own almond-shaped eyes widening. Gayton, she sings. He winks. Your ideas are fun. The forest is noisy when Gayton and Everest arrive. Narir nods her head and calls, Good day. She lays thick leaves across a long branch. The hut stands out. The forest is a never-ending faucet, dripping rainwater much of the year. Mud keeps it out of the walls. Palm leaves stop it from seeping through the roof. The smell of blood and smoke draw Gayton's eyes. Near a small fire, a woman uses a sharpened flint to process a fresh kill. The deer will be dinner tonight. So quiet today, Gayton questions curiously, noting that the camp is missing the usual noise of the Twa children. The women working on the huts do so without the customary greetings or smiles. The air feels thickened. The Malimo. Did you lose someone? Everest frowns. Yes, during the birthing. Nair sighs heavily. The mothers are milking the infant. But don't worry, the men woke the forest up. Mother Forest fell asleep and wasn't able to protect us from death, but the men woke her up with the Malimo horn. The noise last night. Gaten's face shows the dawn of understanding. While sitting in the grass near the edge of the fields, Gayton heard the Malimo horn and the shouts of men last night. Tonight is the celebration, then, he asks. Naira nods. Yes, we defeated the Malimo, we woke Mother Forest, and she'll protect us again from loss. We need 3 more huts. Can you two help over there? This one is almost done. She nods to the side where a group of women are slapping mud onto the circular frame. The sun climbs high in the sky, bringing light even to the forest floor. Gayton's arms are full of sticks when Everest cries out. His head swivels, his eyes searching for and finding her, just in time to see her fall to the ground. She clutches her hands low in front of her, her head and shoulders bent forward in pain. Everest, concern knots his stomach. He drops the load of sticks and jogs to her. Her legs are bent, and he can't see her face. What happened? How did you fall? He reaches down, puts an arm between her shoulder blades. A few others start towards them, asking after her. Worry darkens his eyes. She's not speaking. Once she fell out of a tree and broke her arm. She got quiet then, too. Everest, just as he went to touch her, her head lifts, and before he processes the smile on her face, her fingers, light and healthy as can be, spread mud from his forehead, down his nose, over his lips, and to the edge of his chin. Laughter chimes through the forest as streaks of sunlight dance across the forest floor. The women gathered around to ensure she was safe, laughed, turned towards each other, and began to talk about being that young again. Tilting her chin up a notch, she pulls her bottom lip between her teeth, waiting for Gayton's response. When he rocks back on his heels, observing her quietly, a hint of fear drifts into her chocolate-colored eyes. You look quite handsome covered in mud, she offers, shrugging her shoulders, giggling again, her eyes wavering between mischief and appropriate remorse. But you might need to bathe. I'll show you the river after dinner. A reluctant smile pulls at the corner of his lips. You will do no such thing. Rising, he watches her dust herself off, moving to her bare feet. You're not supposed to touch me, Cherie. Oh, I'm not. Her eyes widen in mock surprise. Completely disregarding all propriety, her smile fading, she lifted her shoulder and admits softly, I suppose I just couldn't help myself. Gayton's mouth opens and closes on a smile. Get away from me, Heaton. Evers turns to walk away, laughing, when his arm snaps out, smacking her on the backside. Chagrined, she grasps, swirling towards him again. He winks, explaining, You tricked me into thinking you were hurt. I'm perfectly within reason to discipline you, and obviously you deserve that. Did I? She scrunches her nose and dances her shoulders. When the women playfully ask if they are going to help or just play, they remove back to work. Gaydon watches her stack sticks, layer mud and leaves, and forgets about the aching in his muscles from the labor. The graceful curve of her long neck, streaks of bright light playing on her caramel-colored skin, and the frequent laughter that reminds him of mockingbirds draws his attention. By the time shadows instead of light curve on their skin and a cool wind replaces the heat of the day, Gayton's spirits are high. The small fire burning when they arrived grows larger, and the smell of fresh meat cooking over the pit causes stomachs to rumble. As the men return from gathering wood, the children race into and out of the newly formed huts. The typical noisy twa excitedly share stories from the day. The women tease Everest and Gayton, who sit on a log aside each other. The flames climb higher into the night sky. Crackling logs join the cacophony of voices. The wind whistles and nighttime animals scamper through the leaves. Hand-formed bowls made from clay and river water hold the meat and vegetables. They eat until they are full. Mayer's husband, a tall man with curly hair and a thick beard, is the first to start rhythmically clapping. Soon people move. Men wearing only bark cloths around their waists begin moving around in a circle, swaying their bodies and clapping. Women join in. Gaydon dances along with them, but his eyes train on Everest. Dance transforms her. Her face shines with a smile so wide it's all he sees. She claps and stomps, her body sways, her eyes flash. She rocks her head from side to side, and when the group chants, she raises her voice with theirs. Joy oozes from her. Song and dance go on for what feels like hours. Everest is one of the last to collapse, sitting again on the log and folding herself over to lean on him. Relaxed, Gayton allows her to do so, moving his arm around her shoulders until she sits upright again. When she looks at him, seeking reassurance, he smiles at her, moving his arm back to his side. A few of the children chant, "Nightingale, Nightingale." The noise quietens when one of the men mimics the call of a nightingale. Another man answers back, adding a bit of a whippoorwill song with a long whistle. The first man returns a slightly different tune, this one made up of trills and the tremulous mocking of the whippoorwill. Everest and Gayton watch in awe as the bird calling continues unabated to a captivated audience, with a third man joining the chorus, mimicking the nightingale and the African firefinch's high-pitched whine. Nayer's father is the band's leader. He lifts a hand and the bird calls quiet. Children stop fidgeting. The thick canopy of trees and leaves above them sway, gently blowing a breeze across the heated night. Movement catches Everest's eye, and she turns her head in time to see a bush baby scamper up the side of a nearby tree. Its distinctive muddy orange eyes and large fuzzy tail make her smile. The elder tips his head back as if he's looking to the treetops. The nightingale is a powerful songstress. Many think it's the female nightingale that sings, but it's not. Only the males are capable of song. They can sing over 1,000 unique melodies. Each twill, every chirp, each sound is a weapon clearly disguised as a mating call. Many years ago, there were two lovers. They spent every waking moment with one another, but they couldn't marry because the girl wasn't yet of age. Her lover's brother was very jealous. He wanted the girl to himself, and he waited for his chance to take her. One night he saw her bathing in the river with no one near and could not control his lust. He violently attacked her and stole her virtue. As he was out walking, the girl's beloved heard her screams. They were wild and desperate. He ran, as hard as he could, through the brush and limbs to find her. He came upon the scene of his brother attacking the girl, and he was filled with rage. He grabbed a large rock from the water's edge, and a violent fight ensued between the brothers. The girl scrambled up off the ground and tried to offer her beloved help, but her rapist prevailed. He killed her beloved and cut the girl's tongue out so that she could not tell anyone what had happened. Instead, he spread lies, saying he defended her honor. To spare his brother's name, he offered to marry her. From the heavens, the girl's dead beloved was inconsolable, watching as his selfish and violent brother slowly reduced her from a spirited, intelligent woman to little more than a servant. Their wedding was quickly approaching, and the dead brother watched as his beloved made plans to end her life rather than marry her rapist. The thought of the girl dying caused her dead beloved to plead with the gods to intervene. They had mercy on the girl. They refused to raise him back to life in his human form, but turned him into a nightingale instead. Just hours before her wedding, the voiceless girl sat on the wet ground near the water's edge, holding a knife to her wrist. Before she could end her life and travel to the other world, the melodic sound of the nightingale drew her attention. The bird was small and reddish-brown in color. The unique coloring reminded her of her beloved's hair, and her tears quieted enough to listen to the song. It sounded like a promise. The girl didn't end her life. When the nightingale left her, he flew into the open window of the castle, where his brother drank ale in preparation for his wedding night. The nightingale's song was now a shrill, shrieking noise. The groom tried to get rid of the bird, but he couldn't reach him as he flew high. The gods had given the nightingale a special gift. His song could destroy those who would harm his beloved. Eventually, in an effort to grab the elusive bird, the crazed brother lunged and tumbled out the window, hitting his head on the stone below and dying. The nightingale flew through the castle grounds until he found the girl, and he stayed by her side. At night, his low-pitched melodies lulled her to sleep, and she learned to recognize the high-pitched call as a warning that danger was nearby. The nightingale's fierce protection of her became well known among the kingdom. The bird's calls would drive people to end their own life if they threatened her happiness, but also filled the night with songs so haunting and beautiful travelers came from miles around to hear them. Everest's eyes roamed toward Gayton in time to catch him wink at her. The fire crackles, casting long shadows on the land. The moon shines full in the sky. The children start to yawn, and Gayton motions to Everest. It is time to leave the forest and its people. The two are quiet as they walk side by side through the purple midnight land. Everest says softly, "I wish I had a nightingale." Surprised by her quiet solemnity and candor, Gayton's brows furrow. Why? She lifts a shoulder, her eyes avoiding his. "Everest, some Hutus saw me walking to Sarah's the other day, and—" She shook her head, her voice trailing. "And what?" Gayton reaches out, grabs her hand, and slows to a stop. "What happened?" She smiles, but it doesn't reach her eyes. After a few moments, she shakes her head, turns, and starts to walk again. "It's nothing. They didn't do anything, Gayton. But you were right. I'm never going to be Hutu. Having a nightingale might help confuse people, make them think I was one." Arrows fly through Gayton's veins. "You don't need to be a Hutu." She smiles again, briefly looking at him. "I'll talk to them." She exhales a sigh. "Oh, Gayton, what would that do?" A true Everest smile finally makes it to her eyes as she laughs softly. "You remember when you attacked that boy that was so much older than you with sticks because he called me his dirty cockroach? He told everybody you were demon-possessed." Gayton pulls her to a stop again, near the ancient tree and under the moon's glow. "I won't let anyone hurt you. You'll tell me if anyone tries, and I'll make it stop." She nods, her eyes widening. "You know, on second thought, I think I already have a nightingale." Her teasing wrenches a crooked smile from Gayton. Gently, he reaches out and traces a finger from the edge of her eye down to the tip of her chin, and then slides his palm to her neck. Goosebumps dance along her arms. "You're not supposed to touch me, heathen," she reminds him. Gayton drops his arm and winks. "Ah, that's right. Guess I just couldn't help myself."